I never really knew much about naturopathic medicine. I did know that I always wanted to be a doctor. And that really started from a very young age. My mother and my grandmother were both nurses, and for some reason I was in hospitals just watching them work quite a bit. And so I was really inspired by medicine, really always knew that I wanted to be a doctor since I was 5. I wanted to be a pediatrician. And so I was really med school bound my whole life. You know, I went through high school volunteering in a hospital. I started working at the end of high school in a hospital and throughout university, and was really inspired by medicine, really always knew that that was my calling. And then through university I did, the sciences, and I did my MCAT, still thinking I'm going to medical school. And my mother started seeing an ND, and told me about naturopathic medicine, and I had never heard about it. And really at the beginning was not interested. I thought there's no way I'm going to pursue that. It doesn't sound like there's evidence behind it and very science-based. And so I came to naturopathic medicine as a skeptic. And then, a few things changed in my life at that time. I was in my 4th year. I was working in an emergency department throughout my university years, and I had always assumed that that would be me one day. I would be a medical doctor, I'd be working in a hospital, and kind of all of a sudden, various experiences in my life, one, my mother seeing an ND and planting that seed in me, 2, looking at the medical system from the perspective of working in a hospital, 3, doing some research. I was a research assistant and doing my thesis in hormone disruptors and endocrinology and things like that, and it all kind of started to align, and it started to prompt me to think about my life from a preventative standpoint, and my impact to medicine from a preventative standpoint, and I started to really see myself on that side as opposed to in conventional medicine. And so it really got to the point where I had written my MCAT, I had written my application for medical school, and I couldn't press send. Like I couldn't do it. I really thought that I belonged in naturopathic medicine, and here I am, and never really regretted it.
What then led you to be interested in becoming a resident?
Very similarly, I didn't really know much about residency. I didn't know that it existed until my 3rd year. In my first 2 years at CCNM, I was kind of, doing my own thing academically, and I wasn't too involved with the college. In my 3rd year, I became involved with the NSA. In my 4th year, I was NSU president. And I began to really see CCNM behind the scenes. And I started to really fall in love with the school and with the administration, and really understanding that people were here to improve naturopathic medicine and improve the profession. So I started to understand a little bit more about the residency through that lens. And while a lot of my colleagues, like a lot of the other students, really could not wait to get out of CCNM, I couldn't wait for more. And I really wanted to continue being a part of the institution, and so that was, the perspective from kind of understanding about the residency. I've always loved teaching. I've always been impassioned by that. So, even through my high school years, I was a tutor and all of that stuff. So that was something that really drew me to the residency as well. So that kind of coupled with wanting to be at CCNM and continue to contribute was what drew me to the residency.
Like just a perfect fit.
It was very much a natural fit, and I really felt like there was no other option. Like this was something that was a natural fit after graduating, and I was very excited to continue.
What were you hoping to learn from embarking upon the residency program? So what were you going into the residency program hoping to learn or get out of it?
That's a great question. I will say that the sky was the limit for me. I was really drawn to the research residency, so that's what I ended up applying to both the clinical and research residency, but made it very clear that that was, where I wanted to go. I really wanted to catapult my baseline understanding and baseline knowledge as a CCNM student and as an intern into the residency. So I really wanted to soak up everything that I could through the residency in terms of learning. I wanted to continue to be, around the wealth of kind of knowledge that faculty bring to CCNM, that other residents bring to CCNM, that students consistently show. And so I really wanted to soak all of that up from a academic standpoint, a clinical standpoint, and then from a research standpoint as well. I really wanted to stretch myself, really get more experience in teaching, because I knew that I wanted to teach long term. I wanted to be involved in the college from that perspective long term. And then from a research perspective, I loved research as a student in university. I loathed research as a student at CCNM. I really took a step away from research as a student at CCNM. I think as a student you're very, as very stretched. Definitely. And so, some of the passions that you might come into the college with, you might not have room for. And so it was exciting to me to kind of open that door back up. And to do it through the lens of something that I was very passionate about, which was naturopathic medicine. And so I was really looking to reopen that and recultivate that experience that I had previously, but not really nurtured through my 4 years. And I set some goals for myself in terms of what I wanted to accomplish in the 2 years of the residency, and part of that was clinical expertise, part of that was teaching experience, and a huge part of that was research experience, and both contributing to research as well as presenting research and networking from a research capacity and things like that. So so there's quite a few goals. Quite a few goals in the residency.
And that's because, as you said, the sky's the limit, and it's just to really make the most of it, that opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think, coming out of being a CCNM student, you certainly are, I felt like anyway, a bit of a fragment of yourself. I feel like some people come through the program and are more energized. I was significantly depleted, and so you need to go into the residency with passion, and that only comes from being excited about this opportunity. Certainly not because you have the energetic resources to deal with the workload and things like that happen in the residency. So it needs to be the right fit in order for you to really bring that out of yourself.
What were your responsibilities as a resident?
Oh, what weren't your responsibilities as a resident? Oh my goodness. They were widespread. So my role is a little bit unique compared to the clinical resident role. My role was meant to be 60% devoted to research and 40% devoted to what was termed clinic. It varied throughout my residency, but certainly there was a vested interest from Jasmine, who's the residency coordinator, to really match that as much as possible. So I'll talk about my research responsibilities to start. So that was really the bulk. That was meant to be the bulk. It was my responsibility to, create a project and to see that project through, and then eventually to write that project up and all of that. So my my goal was to delve a little bit into cardiovascular disease. That was really something that was interesting to me. So I did a 2-part study in hypertension. I did an audit of the RSNC procedures when it comes to assessing hypertension, the way that the interns and supervisors currently deal with it, as it relates to what we should be doing based on our standards. Not our standards, but Canada-wide standards around primary care and what primary care physicians should be doing in terms of assessing hypertension. And then the second part was a review of how well are we doing as NDs within the lens of CCNM and the RSNC. How well are we doing it as NDs at treating hypertension? So how are we doing to improve outcomes of hypertension, whether it's blood pressure itself or medication use by this population. So that was the large project that I undertook in terms of the research residency. But in addition to that, I was also trying as much as possible to facilitate a culture of research through the student population. So that involved what was then called the Journal Club, which is now called the Research Club. Facilitating speakers there, things like that. It also involved me writing, so I would write, and that was one of my goals. I wanted to really cultivate my research writing, so, writing in things like the Vital Link, the NDNR, the IHP, doing peer review for various publications that came out, writing, review articles, things like that. So it was quite widespread within just research itself. And then in terms of the clinical side, which I would say is about probably 90% of what the clinical residents do. It's quite a bit of teaching. So, you're a teaching assistant or TA for various courses at CCNM. So you'd have quite a bit of student-facing experience. Part of what the research resident does that is unique to the others is being a TA for the Research 100 course, which is the first year course in research. And then certainly various others. So I was involved in all kinds of courses, gynaes, DREs. I was involved in PCD and primary care, in acupuncture and manipulation and OSCEs, all kinds of things. I'm sure I'm missing a ton of them. But it's wonderful because you get to really, if teaching is something that impassions you, then it's something that you can really cultivate through the residency. So lots of teaching opportunities, and then certainly clinic opportunities as well. So in the first year of the residency, you are shadowing a mentor of your choosing in the RSNC. So you can choose who you'd like to shadow, who you'd like to gain more clinical experience from. And then in your second year of the residency, you take on the role of a clinical supervisor, which is such a wonderful experience. And I really thoroughly enjoyed that as well. So it is really quite widespread in terms of the responsibilities through the 2 years. Yeah. And you can make it what you want it to be as well, which is nice. Yeah.
What was or were some of the impacts or the main impact that you were aiming to fulfill as a resident? And how did you try to do that or do those things? Like, was there a point you were trying to hit home? Like, because you mentioned that you had a lot of goals that you wanted to achieve. So is there, so what were some of the main impacts you were trying to have?
Okay, that's a great question. For me, I really am a very organized, kind of intentional person. And so even before applying to the residency, I really wanted to ensure that even though I thought it was a good fit for me, I wanted to make sure that this was something that I really wanted to do, because 2 years is a long time to be doing, a role like this, which can be exhaustive in terms of its impact to you post-graduation of an already rigorous program. So in terms of my goals, what I wanted to achieve, I really wanted to solidify my experience in research. I wanted to present quite a bit in terms of research. So I set myself up with a goal to present twice a year. And so, went to quite a few conferences in order to do that, which was excellent in terms of networking and just excellent in terms of building your confidence as an ND and what an ND can do to impact evidence at large, right? So that was wonderful. I also wanted to write and cultivate that research writing capacity. So I set a goal for myself to write in all of the larger publications that we know in naturopathic medicine. So that was the Vital Link, the NDNR, the IHP, and then a few others. So that was important to me. And then I wanted to see a project through. So from a research perspective, that was the hypertension project that I did. And I wanted to see that it had practical impact. So starting to finish and then creating a bit of a practical checklist for interns and supervisors to utilize after it was done. So those were my goals from a research perspective. From the rest of it, the rest of the residency, I really wanted to develop my teaching style, and I wanted to have more impact with students. And so, knowing that was a goal, I really ensured that I put a lot of energy and a lot of time into developing what I wanted to get out of my teaching, right? So in each of the courses, I really looked to figure out what my impact would be there, and it was quite individualized for each course. But especially in the clinical supervising year, I developed a bit of a pseudo curriculum for my interns and really ensured that they had an arc to their development in their last year. So so all of that kind of put together were large goals of personal and professional development, really pushing myself on various levels, personally and professionally, and developing skills that I had planted seeds for through my CCNM career and previously, but I wanted to see flourish through the residency. And the residency has a really nice way of giving you back what you put in. And so if you kind of go into it being thoughtful and being intentional in the opportunities that you seek within the residencies and the impact that you have, you can really get quite a bit back from it. So
How has being a student and teacher of naturopathic medicine affected your life?
Okay, I mean, it's hard to tease apart how it's affected my life, because I feel like it was so instrumental in my professional life, at least. My patients tell me all the time that it seems like I'm a teacher because of the way that I explain their health to them and the way that I explain my thought process start to finish with them. It has hugely impacted my practice in terms of that innate kind of skill that the residency helps to cultivate. So, that's not necessarily something that I thought the residency would do for me, but it has, and it's something that my patients consistently reflect back to me, which is nice. I think in terms of naturopathic medicine and being a student and teacher, definitely when you're a teacher of anything, you better well be an expert or close to one, right? So it really helps to know the material and feel confident in the material. And, when I do simple things in my practice like acupuncture, having taught it, there's a comfort level that comes with that, right? There's a confidence that comes with it. When I am in my practice and I'm explaining treatment plans, they're coming from a place of comfort and confidence again, because of how much I've been, involved with naturopathic medicine from a student perspective and a teaching perspective. Students certainly being in a clinical supervising role, there's so much that I've learned from interns. There's so much that I've learned from students who are shadowing interns, that it really helps to just kind of flesh out and strengthen your knowledge around anything, around treatments, around protocols, around discussions, around all of that. So, it really has impacted my practice in a positive way because of my comfort level around naturopathic medicine and around treatments and things like that. I mean, naturopathic medicine is so interesting because it is not just it's not just a professional career. It ends up impacting your beliefs,
Definitely.
your philosophies on life, your way of being in the world on various levels. And so it is exceptionally difficult to tease apart, how has naturopathic medicine affected my life? Oh my goodness. I feel like, and as a student, you really notice yourself kind of evolving and being pushed, your boundaries are being challenged every day, really. My boundaries were challenged the very first day of naturopathic medicine, learning about things like homeopathy and traditional Chinese medicine, learning from Dr. Anthony Godfrey about the philosophy of naturopathic medicine. I had not heard these concepts before, and it shook me like to my core, right? Everything that I thought I knew. And so I think it's created an openness in me that that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten from conventional medicine. I find myself being open in general in life to the possibilities, because we know in naturopathic medicine that we don't necessarily have the answers, and we're okay with that. I think there comes a comfort with uncertainty that I didn't have before. And evidence-based medicine is an interesting concept because, and I'm saying this from a research residency perspective, it's a challenging concept if you are narrow in what it means. But to me, it can be a very open concept when we think about evidence from different lenses. Evidence can be more than what's written down on paper and published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal, right? Evidence can be, the way that your patient presents to you and the clinical experience that you gather from patient visits. And so it lends itself to openness when you go through this program and are being challenged in so many different capacities, both from a teaching perspective, going through the program academically, from a clinical standpoint, and from a philosophical standpoint too. So huge ways that it's impacted my life.
Are you currently involved in the field of naturopathic medicine and health?
I'm actually starting to define that for myself, so you're catching me at a time where I haven't really defined it. So the easy ones are that I'm in practice, so I'm a practitioner. I continue to have my clinical practice that I started at the beginning of my residency and have continued since then. I do see myself as an advocate, an ambassador for naturopathic medicine in my personal life as well. And I see myself as a business person and relay that to naturopathic medicine. There's been a bit of a recent change in my career and my roles just as it relates to CCNM. So previous to probably 2 months ago, I was supervising at the college on contract, and I was also TAing. So that continued post-residency, which was wonderful and something that I really wanted. But I had to put that on hold for the upcoming year because I have recently stepped into a position at the college in a different capacity. That didn't lend itself to me being open to the others. And so currently I work in the advancement department at the college, where I am essentially working with various stakeholder groups to further the direction of CCNM and advance the profession through the lens of CCNM, which is absolutely fulfilling, so different stakeholder groups like alumni, students, preceptors, our corporate sector as well, so working with the various companies that align with CCNM and support the college and support the profession. And that's exceptionally fulfilling work because, anything that I can do in terms of playing a role to impact the college and impact the profession sits highly with me. So that's wonderful. And then the other side that I manage as well is the publishing side of CCNM, which is CCNM Press. And so we are going through a bit of a transition where we're changing up our processes, and so we're essentially publishing new textbooks and new material that will help to create a bit of an adjunct resource for students in their various courses. So that's exceptional,
awesome.
very exciting work as well. So a few different roles.
What do you feel can be gained from participating in the residency program?
For students who are considering the residency program, I would say that you, like I mentioned before, you will get what you put into it. So definitely just, take care of yourself so you have the resources, the energy and the physical resources to deal with the rigor that comes with the residency program. It is different stress, but it's still stress coming out of, the 4-year rigorous CCNM program and then walking into the residency. It is certainly not easy. So it's important for you to know what you want to get out of it, and that's very individualized for each person. So if you have a passion for oncology, for example, then you might want to consider spotlighting that a little bit through your residency. So that might include doing research in oncology. That might include being mentored by an ND who has a special interest in oncology. It might include being involved in courses where you're marking papers on oncology, right? So if that's really what you want to get out of it, this is certainly the platform that you can do it in. I would say it's an exceptionally individualized thing. But in terms of the residency, for myself, I felt very fulfilled coming out of it, very tired coming out of it, but very fulfilled coming out of it because I knew what I wanted to get out of it, and I mapped out goals in order to do that. And in terms of the college, the college is very supportive to your goals, and the college is very supportive to people who are willing to put the work in order to advance those goals, because ultimately your success becomes the college's success. So why wouldn't that be aligned, right? So I think if you come in wanting to hit the ground running, the world is your oyster in terms of naturopathic medicine, because you can do a lot within the residency. It's wonderful to be within the college, being able to pick the brains of people like Paul Saunders and Leslie Solomonian and Alan Vu and the wonderful professors that we have, Jonathan Prowski. It's just there's so many people at your fingertips that you don't necessarily have quick access to if you leave the college right away. If teaching is something that you want to do, then here's an excellent platform for you to do that. It's very competitive coming back, in TAing or supervising. So having the residency experience and really maximizing on that experience while you're here can open doors for you for sure. If you want to open doors outside of CCNM, being involved with the college can do that too. So, working at other colleges or, working at other institutions, whether it's universities or colleges outside of the naturopathic sphere, this is the place to gain that experience and make those connections and get it done. So, it really comes down to what you want to focus on and where you see your career going in 5, 10 years, 15 years, whatever the case is, and then working backwards and figuring out how the residency can fulfill that, because it sure can, if you make it what you want it to be. Yeah.
I just feel so inspired. I'm just I gotta write down my goals. And
It's it's great. It's great. Yeah, and the residency doesn't need to happen in order for you to get there in terms of your career. Maybe it's not the right place for certain people who really want to be out in practice and see their practice growing in 5 years. Then, not that the residency can't do that. I certainly have seen that it can, but it really is in terms of what you want to prioritize and where you see yourself, and can the residency be a jumping off point for that or not, and that's okay too.
You mentioned that it's a different stress, that the stress of entering the residency program is different from the stress of being a student, being in the 4-year program. I'm wondering if you could talk more about that.
Sure. Let's see if I can even put that into words. So when you're a student, your stressors are around all kinds of things. There's the financial stress, of being a student and the burden of that, and I find balancing the various courses, balancing your own expectations of, wanting to know everything and not being able to. And, that's something that I think follows you throughout the career of an ND, because the more that you know, the more experience that you have, the more you realize what you don't actually know. And you have to just you just have to start being okay with that, right? So you're never going to feel like an expert, especially in this field that is so dynamic and constantly changing, and and that stress I would say continues through residency. Is there as a student, continues through the residency, continues as a practitioner, probably will never leave. I've talked to practitioners who have been practitioners for 30 years and they continue to feel like they don't know anything, right?
Oh.
And so you just have to be okay with that. So that's a stressor. I would say in the residency,